Really appreciate you sticking around. This is part three of the conversation with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. And once again, we're going to pick up right where we left off. And thank you very much.
There's no, she's just a pawn. Now, Trump, nobody's got a hold on him. He's not anybody's pawn. I'm not sure they could get him because he's rich. He doesn't need anything. So, but it doesn't mean, as you know, we've already talked about him. He doesn't mean he knows what to do or he can put the people in. But he's probably smart enough to know that he doesn't gain from a nuclear war. And he doesn't seem to be the kind of ideologue like William Crystal or Max Boot or the idiots that write for the Wall Street Journal editorial page or the Weekly Standard. He's not that kind of person, so he's not going to destroy the world for the sake of his ideology. So if even Obama and Kerry, if I'm correct, I mean, I may be wrong, but if even they realize, hey, look, this is getting out of control, this is getting away from us, what the neocons told us is, hey, if we put pressure on the Russians, they'll give in, but they're not. In fact, they're in a better position than we are. We better stop this. It's not working. The Russians are not submitting. We got to come to an accommodation because if this spins out of control, it's all over. The world's history. You know, look, years ago, when I was in the congressional staff, I was staff associate, House Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. I had to have all kinds of clearances because I had to approve or help the congressman understand the weapons programs and what they should have and not have and all that. So you had all these clearances, and I remember getting a briefing once, and it was about the Russian SS-18. And I'm sure the guy was exaggerating in order to make the point. But what he said was, if an SS-18 hit Washington, it would kill everybody from Boston to Atlanta.
Oh my God.
And I saw last week 3 times authoritative reports that one SS-18 would vaporize the entire state of New York. There would be nothing there. Nothing. The entire, not just a city, the entire state. So we're talking about an SS-18 is 17,000 times more powerful than the bombs we used on Japan. 17,000 times. Now, you're talking about weapons. I mean, how many of those would it take to completely destroy the United States? They've got enough of them to do it several times over. So we're talking about a real threat. You know, we're not talking about some made-up, orchestrated terrorist attack. We're talking about death and destruction on a level that's Armageddon. And I think that Kerry and Obama probably have enough sense to realize that and see what are they to gain. Nobody. What does anybody gain? Nobody gains from this. The banks don't. The military security complex don't. Not even the neocons do. I mean, of course, they get to wipe out the world for the sake of their ideology, but nobody's going to go along with that. So that's my view of it. I think now what we're going to see is probably some vicious attacks on Kerry and Obama. If I was Kerry, I would simply fire Victoria Nuland. I would go to Obama and say, look, I've put up with her long enough. It's me or her right now. I'm firing her. If you don't back it up, here's my resignation. I'm not going to be part of this. And he ought to say, and you better get rid of that national security advisor you got and that UN ambassador, because they're both warmongering troublemakers. And we're in trouble enough. You don't need that. And you want to start clearing these neocons out of the administration and out of the Pentagon. And any of them they got in the military, you want an early retirement. That's what Kerry should do. I mean, what does it matter to him? He's rich. He's married a rich woman as well. He's had all these distinctions. Now he needs to save his character and his soul and the rest of us. And that's what Kerry should do.
Craig, my whole thing is, though, and I think history backs me up on this, once you have enough money, then you crave power. And I've come to the conclusion that power, the addiction to power is as strong or stronger than an addiction to something like heroin. And I just think that these guys will not give up the power that the U.S. has. Even if it's been demonstrated that we don't have military superiority anymore, we still have the dollar, we still have economic power, we still have a high amount of geopolitical power. I just think that these guys that are deep inside the government they're not going to give it up without a fight. I think it's just human nature.
Yeah, but you see, you don't have power when you're utterly destroyed. And I think that's the difference. The kind of power that they think they had, they've learned they don't have. They don't have that power.
Yeah, I mean that one technological
this is a
weapon.
big difference. I mean, Dave, you would be right in some other historical context, but now what's dawning on the people in Washington, at least on some of them, is that they don't have that power. That power is already eroding. We've talked about it many times. It's a house of cards. The whole economy is a house of cards that they've created to try to keep power going. One finger flick and the whole thing's coming down.
Yellen told us yesterday the economy is on the right track. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. I know you believe that too, right? I'm sure you believe that, Dave. I don't think that when the Pentagon's just conducted 16 war games and the Russians come out on top every time, I don't think they got any power. And the neocons have to know this too now because they're in the Pentagon. Not all of them. I mean, not everywhere in the Pentagon. I mean, there's a lot of opposition to them, and it's increasing. And you increasingly see people who were part of it speaking out. You did see, didn't you, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency on television saying, yes, we created ISIS, we used it to overthrow governments, and we've lost control over it. And you see more and more people speaking out. The generals, 3-star generals saying, oh my God. And so it's the kind of role that the neocons were on under George Bush and Cheney. That's been blended. And Obama has resisted them. You see, he has not been anxious to put any troops back in. He was anxious to get them out of Afghanistan, out of Iraq. It was a fight. It was hard. He couldn't just have it done. It shows the limits on presidents. But I think there is some cause for hope now because clearly Kerry ate crow. And I noticed he took Victoria Nuland with him. And some people said, well, she was there to keep the neocon leash on him. But there wasn't any leash. He gave the concessions to the Russians. They didn't give them to him. And I think he took her along so that she would have to be part of the crow eating. If you look at her expression on some of the videos, you see somebody who's really suffering, and that's Victoria Nuland in these meetings when Kerry is giving these concessions. I mean, she looks like she's dying. So it could well be. He said, okay, babe, you fouled me up once, so now this is payback. You're going to come witness this.
Here's your plate.
Yeah, that's right. Here's your plate of crow, honey. You enjoy it. I'm certainly enjoying giving it to you. So, you can't tell what's going on. We're never going to know because the Russians are too diplomatic to say what they told Kerry. And we know the prostitute media won't even bother to find out. And if they did, they would tell us the opposite, you know. But I think what we have to still fear is, you know, the neocons are tied in to the black op murderers, you know, that we have.
Academy X and formerly Blackwater.
Yeah, that's right. They're tied in to whoever pulls off all these false flag attacks. They're part of that.
Mercenaries.
No, I think there's a off book version of the CIA. I'm not talking about the analysts, you know, the people who provide intelligence, but there's an operation division which does everything that's illegal and immoral. And the neocons are tied into that. And I think they're able to pull off things on their own, like the Boston Marathon bombing, like the Charlie Hebdo, like the Paris attacks. San Bernardino, 9/11. I think they're able to do these things independently of the ordinary official everyday government, including the president. And there's a lot of people who have written books saying that that's their own conclusion from being in the government for a long time and so on. And, I can't prove any of it, but I do think that that's the case. And so we don't know what desperate neocons will do next, what the next false flag will be to get everybody back in line, to overcome the initiative Kerry has taken now to calm things down with the Russians. I mean, they got to get calm. And another reason they have to get calm with the Russians is it's scaring Europe to death. And at some point, the United States government knows the Europeans are going to say these risks are just too high. Being an American vassal, being in NATO, well, we can't stand these risks. It's exposing us to annihilation.
It's our front yard.
It's us, right? We're not part of this anyhow. We don't have a hegemonic goal. We don't want to have, and it doesn't do us any good to help the United States have a hegemonic goal. And we went along with it because it paid. They gave us money. But look now, the other side of it. I mean, the Russians attack. What's left of Germany? Nothing. France? Nothing. England? Nothing. I mean, how many SS-18s would it take to wipe out those little countries? And hardly any. So I think on the whole that Washington, the official part, not the deep state, not the neocons who are tied into the deep state, but just the official government that really doesn't know what's going on any more than you and I do. They got to say, hey, look, wait a minute, we're going to lose all our allies. What are we going to do if somebody pulls out of NATO? It'll start a stampede. That's why they were so worried about Greece. So that pressure is on them too. And also increasingly the adverse effects of Washington's wars in the Middle East, all the refugees pouring into Europe, this is destroying the traditional parties because they're being blamed. See, Merkel in Germany and her coalition, they're now blamed for this immigration because, well, look, you supported the Americans and this is what you got back. Now, if we had had this nationalist party in, they wouldn't have supported them. They would have looked out for Germany. This is what Marine Le Pen is telling them in France. You know, that's now the third largest party in France. It's what Farage is telling them in UK, the UK Independence Party. So people are beginning to say, well, you know, they're right. Look, we were stupid and we ran out and supported the Americans. And now, look, we got these millions of refugees and we already have high unemployment and strained welfare systems. And And now our women are not safe in some parts of town or some towns altogether. And there's all this going on. These people are poor, and there's crime, and there's rapes, and we're losing our country.
We're losing our country.
And who did this to us? Cameron, Tony Blair, Sarkozy, Hollande, Merkel. And that's what they're saying everywhere. So the whole Western civilization is disintegrating. It's not a civilization. The Western institutions that America has used to keep things under its thumb, they're disintegrating under the neocons' wars and under the pressure that the neocons have had the American government put on Russia. And of course, the neocons are even starting it on China. I mean, how in the hell do they think they're going to confront China in the South China Sea? So far, so far away. It only takes one cruise missile and the aircraft carrier is gone forever. We're so proud of our aircraft carriers. Well, 11 cruise missiles, 11 aircraft carriers at the bottom of the sea. They're antique, outmoded weapons, just like battleships were in World War II. Battleships were useless. They were defenseless from the air. The aircraft carriers are useless and defenseless. The Chinese have already made that clear. The Russians have made that clear. That's why they don't really worry about having them. You think China can't have all the aircraft carriers it wants?
Yeah.
They don't want them. What are they good for? They're sitting ducks. And so the whole thing is so much against us. You know, and Dave is so good at pointing out all the economic problems. None of them are acknowledged. If you don't acknowledge the problems, you can't have a solution for them. And when they finally bite you, you don't know what to do because you've never acknowledged them. And so all of a sudden, you're faced with a great uncertainty and collapse.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
Yeah. Where did that come? I thought we had 5% unemployment and all these jobs and recovery. And what? What do you mean? Depression? 40% unemployment? My God, how did this happen?
How can this happen?
Yeah.
Why did nobody see this?
Yeah. Why didn't they see this? Or, I mean, why didn't they see that you can't constantly threaten Russia and not expect them to rise to the threat? I mean, how stupid can you be? You have to be an American,
right,
in Washington or in the media.
In the media, if
to
you
be
listen,
that stupid.
If you listen to the mainstream media here in America, you would think that all of the pressure is being applied to Russia, when in fact it's the exact opposite, which goes to what I explain to my wife on a regular basis. If you listen to what they say and you do the exact opposite, you're going to be a whole lot closer to the truth.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it. Well, I think we've kind of covered the waterfront. I don't know what y'all think, but I got so much to do, and I think that we have covered it, and I think this has been a very useful discussion or rant by me, but I'm really just telling you what the facts are. And I get, you see, my columns now are translated in so many languages, and I hear from all over the world. My readership's about 3 times the size of the New York Times. And I hear from everybody, and you know, the United States is becoming a despised place. People all over the world they hate Washington. They hate it because they see the risk and they see the stupidity of it, and it's everything is turned against us, and it's a house of cards without friends, but with bought and paid for puppets whose allegiance is coming into doubt as they see the risk building on them. That's the good summary of our present situation. The notion that we're a superpower, that is a joke. That is a total joke. That we have values, what a joke. That we have democracy, what a joke. These are total jokes. Consistently, worldwide polls show the two least trusted, most despised, most regarded as threat countries in the world are the United States and Israel. No one else is close. What we call the axis of evil, North Korea, Iran, whoever else is on it now, Russia, Syria, whoever, these are down like they get 1 or 2% of the votes as the threat. What does the United States get? 25 to 30%. The next closest is 5%. We're 5 times, other than Israel. Israel is close with us. United States and Israel is regarded as 5 times the threat of any other country. No matter how much we've demonized the country, including North Korea. This is the consistent result of world polls. And the American people don't know it. They'd have to get off their butt and go online and look it up, because the media isn't going to tell them. Fox News isn't going to tell them. CNN not going to tell them. New York Times not going to tell them. Certainly the Weekly Standard isn't going to tell them, or National Review, the Wall Street Journal. So they, the American people they're clueless. They're living in the matrix. They have no clue about anything.
See, and that's where I think the danger lies,
yes,
Greg, because right. I think, you get someone like Trump who, again, he's a wild card. I mean, right now, after that San Bernardino thing, the last poll I saw is something like 65 or 70% of the people polled are terrified of ISIS, and they think that the U.S. military needs to do more over in the Middle East and around the world to root out ISIS, even though, it's insane because the U.S. created ISIS. But if that's the type of sentiment right. that gets a guy like Trump elected, there's no telling how far off the rails he could go in terms of exercising the power he gets.
No, but he doesn't get the power, Dave. I think that it's, what the point you just made comes to the main point. Cui bono? Who benefits from all of these alleged ISIS terrorist events? The neocons. Who wants the wars? Who wants the fights in the Middle East? Who wants that? The neocons. The neocons. What is every one of these false flag operations done? They've strengthened the neocon position. That's why they're done. Well, that was the whole reason for 9/11. 9/11 is the new Pearl Harbor. Remember, the neocon laid out their plans for world conquest, starting in the Middle East, and they say, we can't start this until we have a new Pearl Harbor. We got to have a new Pearl Harbor. Well, what was the new Pearl Harbor? 9/11. And every time people get tired and start to rethink it, the Boston bombing, the Paris attacks, San Bernardino, these are all done by the neocon, black op, rogue part of the government that the official government doesn't know anything about, to keep the neocon project moving. Well, Trump is not part of that. And if he gets in and they're going to say, okay, do this, do that, and he gets a phone call from Putin to say, are you trying to bring the world to an end? What's Trump going to do? He's going to say, wait just a minute. That's a very good question. So it's not, it's not like Putin's over there out of control, foaming at the mouth too. He's very much in control of himself. He doesn't take these offenses. He'll speak down to people and correct them, but he's not rattling sabers, anxious to go to war. He's given orders that make it perfectly clear they've had enough and are not going to put up with stuff. And I think this is what's caused this time Obama to back Kerry and send him over there to calm this down. And I think that's what the whole purpose of this was. It was to calm down this, to get this momentum toward war stopped. Well, now, as I said, the neocons are going to probably have another false flag attack. And what will it be? Oh, it'll be something terribly wrong, awful, whether they blame ISIS or Russia. But they're desperate, they're reckless, and they're arrogant, they're full of hubris, and they think that history has chosen them This is a revolutionary fervor. It's what produces fanatics. And every neocon is a fanatic. And if you had the same thing going on in Russia, we would already be at nuclear war. But over there, you got calm, controlled people who realize what the stakes are and are going to ride it out and prevent it.
Well, at least everything that they can to prevent it.
They're not going to accept annihilation. They're not going to be vassals. And I think that as long as they have such upper hand in technology and the ability to shut us down and we can't defend against it, they're going to put up with us.
Do you think
the minute they see, the Americans are getting this, they're going to be able to do it too, or block us, they're going to take us out. Because they're just not going to risk it at that point.
Do you think that this new technological weapon that Russia just unveiled, do you think that that is part of the reason that Kerry was told to go and, back out of this Syrian situation? And do you think that that is, do you feel like that is going to have any positive effect on these psychopathic, megalomaniac neocons?
No, not on them. No, they'll just have to be constrained by the ordinary government, by the military, by the allies, or the puppets, the vassals, the European vassals. I think all of that now is starting to turn against them, which I said will make them probably more desperate, and there'll be more audacious 9/11 type events. I think that it's turned on them because people are beginning to realize the risk. And when they look, they don't need to know anything about the technology. The Pentagon says we just conducted 16 war games of Russia and lost every one of them. So what's all this talk from McCain and the other low-grade morons about shooting down Russian airplanes in Syria? Wait, really? You really want to do that? We don't want to do it, is what the military is saying. It's not something we don't want to go to war that we're going to lose. I mean, I had a lawyer once. I was convinced he was very good. He only tried cases for Supreme Court. He was very good. And it was just a rather small thing. He's a friend of mine. I said, I want you to go settle this with the county. And he looked at it and said, nope, you'd lose. Won't do it. Well, that's what the military is going to tell them. No, we won't do it. You don't see any great rush in the Pentagon to put boots on the ground in Syria. You see resistance. Okay, you two. Talk to you later.
All right, Craig. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.